Hello, Algebra 1. Today we're going to be talking about vertex form, orientation, and shape, which basically is just going to give us a better understanding of the different forms of quadratics and the way that they look. So we're going to have two main forms of quadratics that we are going to talk about, standard form and vertex form. Standard form looks like this. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And we're going to see this form a lot over the course of the next few units. When we get to unit 10, we'll introduce another form as well called factored form. But for now, standard form and vertex form are the ones you need to know about. Vertex form looks like this. Y equals a, and then in parentheses, x minus h squared plus k. And what's nice about vertex form is that h comma k actually is your vertex, which is your min or your maximum value. So this means when you're in vertex form, you don't have to use your calculator to find your vertex. You can just look at your equation and find your vertex automatically. Okay, so again, one of the main benefits of vertex form is that you can identify the vertex without a calculator. So these are vertex form. You can see that because of the parentheses. What you're going to do is you're going to take the inside value that's with x. That's going to be your x coordinate, except you're going to switch the sign. So inside it's a -2. That means your x coordinate is a +2. And then whatever you're adding or subtracting outside, that's going to be your y coordinate, but we're going to keep that sign the same. So our vertex would be at 2, 5. All right, so again, you're going to change the sign. You're going to keep the sign. All right, so for example, in number 2, we would make our +3 a -3, and we'd keep the outside one the same. Okay, and for number 3, again, change the inside, keep the outside, and that's it. That's just what it is. Okay, that's how we find the vertex in vertex form. Okay, now what we're going to talk about next is the a value. So both vertex and standard form have this a value. You can see it's right here. Okay, so this is an a value, this is an a value. It's that number in front. This would be a 1 of the parentheses in vertex form. Okay, so it's the number in front of the x squared for standard form, and it's in front of the parentheses, I'll just put that, in vertex form. And this a value actually does something pretty important. So we're going to graph these, and we're just going to look at them. Okay, so here's your first one, x squared. And I'm going to do a zoom 6. Okay, this is just your kind of standard parabola. This would have an a value of 1. Okay, now I'm going to do -x squared. Oops. Oh boy, let's try again. And you're going to notice it has the same general shape, but it's just upside down. Okay, a value of -1 this time. This time our a value is 10. Okay, you can see that 10 in front of the x squared. Let's see how that changes this. Okay, you should notice it's a lot skinnier. Okay. All right, this time a value of 1/2. Okay, again, it's whatever's in front of the x squared. And this time it's significantly wider. Okay, and finally we've got a -5x squared, so our a value is going to be -5. Think about, okay, before I type this in, what do you think it's going to look like? Okay, just kind of think about it in your head. You don't have to say it out loud. So it's going to be facing downward, and it's going to be kind of skinnier, but not as skinny as this one right here. All right, so here's the situation. Your a value actually is in charge of two things, both your orientation and shape. So orientation means that it's either opening up, which looks like this, or opening down, which looks like this. Okay, and what you probably figured out is when your a value is positive, we're going to open up. And that means we're going to have a minimum value. When your a value is negative, the parabola will open down. It's going to look like this, but that means it's going to have a maximum value. Okay, now it also helps us determine our shape. So what we're going to call this is normal, narrow, or wide. When you're in Algebra 2 Trig, they'll give you some slightly different phrases for this. But for now, normal, narrow, and wide is fine for us. So when your a value is 1 or -1, we call our shape normal. Okay, the negative versus positive, all that does is it just flips the parabola over. It's not influencing the shape at all. Okay, when absolute value of a is greater than 1, and again, we're putting our absolute value here because if it were a negative, that's still fine. Okay, as long as your number is bigger than 1, we're going to call this narrow. Okay, so over here, when we had the 10 and the 5, we had a skinnier parabola. Okay, notice this is a negative, but that's okay. It just flipped it over. It doesn't change how skinny it is. And finally, if our absolute value of a is between 0 and 1, which generally means a fraction like a 1/2, that means we're going to have a wide parabola. All right, so these are things we should be able to do without our calculator. Without even typing these in, we can find the orientation, the shape, and the vertex. Okay, so again, these two guys right here have to do with your a value. So orientation, find that a value. It's right in front of your parentheses. Okay, it's a positive, so this is going to be up. I'm going to draw a little picture. Okay, that also tells me that I'm going to have a minimum. The shape, 1/3. This is a fraction between 0 and 1, so my shape is wide. And my vertex, this is what we talked about on the other side. We're going to change the sign, keep the sign. So this will be 2, 5. Okay, and that's it. We did everything without a calculator. All right, let's try it again. Okay, orientation and shape, this is your a value. Okay, look at that number in front. Your a value is negative, so this is a down, which looks like this, which means we have a maximum. This is just a regular number more than 1. That means we're narrow. And for the vertex, you are changing the sign, keeping the sign. So this will be -8, -10. All right, one more like this. Orientation and shape, these are your a value. Notice though there's nothing there, so that means it's a 1. It's a positive though, so this means we are orienting up, which looks like this, which means we have a minimum. Shape, since it's a 1, this is normal. And vertex, we are changing the sign, keeping the sign. So that's going to be a 1, -2. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing from standard form. However, in standard form, without your calculator, we are not able to identify our vertex yet. Okay, you will learn a way to in Algebra 2 Trig, but we are not going to worry about it for now. However, you can identify what type of vertex you have, whether it's a min or a max, and you can do orientation and shape. We just can't visually see the vertex like we can in vertex form. Okay, so again, we want to focus on our a value here. A value is the number in front of x squared. That's a 2. It's a positive, so this is an up. And ups have a min. My shape, 2 is more than 1, so that means this is narrow. All right, number 5, again, focus on your a value. That's the only thing we care about in standard form. This is a negative, so that means we are orienting down, which looks like this. Downs have a maximum. And then 1/4 is a number between 0 and 1. That means this is going to be wide. Okay. And our final one of these, again, a value is that number in front of x squared. It's a -1 this time. Negative means we are down, which again will be a maximum. Okay, and our shape, since it's a 1, doesn't matter that's negative. Since it's a 1, this is a normal shape. There's one final thing. We have something called the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is the vertical line that cuts a parabola in half. Because it is a vertical line, it is always x equals. Okay, remember Heivick's. Vertical lines are x equals. All right, and so since you have a parabola like this, it's always going to be a vertical line. And it's always going to pass through the vertex, which we will see. Okay. All right, so now let's see if we can put this all together. Okay, so what's nice about this is because we are in vertex form, we do not need to use the vertex to go ahead and, or we do not need to use our calculator to go ahead and graph this. It is helpful to find other points to graph though, so I am going to have you type it into your calculator, but we're not going to have to use second trace min or second trace max because we can see the vertex from vertex form. Okay. All right, so it looks something like this. Your vertex, again, we're going to change the sign, keep the sign. So this is going to be a 3, 5. We can go ahead and plot that. Okay, now axis of symmetry is always an x equals line, and it's just going to pass through the x coordinate of our vertex, which is 3. Okay, the shape and the orientation have to do with our a value, which is right there, 2. Orientation, it's a positive, so this is oriented up. You can also just see that it's up. And since it's a 2, which is more than 1, our shape is narrow. Now, we're going to use the table to plot a couple points. So to do that, you're going to go to second and then graph, and you're going to see that we have some points here. So here is your vertex. It's at 3, 5, and you can see on either side of it, you have 2, 7, and we have 4, 7. All of the other ones we can't really graph. So we'll just go ahead and do 2, 7, and 4, 7, and then you'll go ahead and sketch your parabola, and then let's put that axis of symmetry in there as well. Okay, and there you go. All right, let's try another one. Let's fill in all this information first, and then we'll graph it. Vertex is at -2, 8. Again, change the sign, keep the sign. Axis of symmetry is always x equals, and it will be the x coordinate of your vertex. Shape and orientation both have to do with your a value. Since it's a negative, this is down. And 2/3 is a fraction between 0 and 1. That's going to make this wide. Now we can go ahead and type this in. And graph. Okay, we already know our vertex, -2, 8. And then we're going to just go ahead and go to the table. Again, that second graph. We're going to find your -2, 8. And we have a bunch of decimals here. Let's see if we can find any nicer points. So we have a -5, 2. And a 1, 2. Oops, that's 2, 2. Or that's 2, 1. 1, 2. We're just going to see if we can find any nicer ones. Are there any other ones? Yeah, so the next one's at -16. So this is it. We're just going to go like this. Okay, it's not perfect. And then go ahead and draw on your axis of symmetry. All right, so the last new thing to teach you for today is about the y-intercept. So we know the y-intercept is where the graph hits the y-axis. And there's a really easy way to find this with your calculator. We're going to do second trace value, x equals 0. Okay, so I'll show you that in just a minute. All right, so for number 3, now we're going to go ahead, we're going to practice finding everything. Okay, we're going to put this all together. So first things first, we can type it in. Okay, and you can graph it, and woo, it's really wide, and you can draw it. Now we need to see the whole picture, so I need to see farther to the right. So I'm going to go ahead, take my window, and I want to go farther to the right. That's going to be X max. Let's try 20. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so now let's see what stuff I can fill in without a calculator here. Vertex. Because I'm in vertex form, I can identify my vertex. Change the sign, keep the sign. So this is 4, 10. Okay, if you want to go ahead and do second trace max, you can, but when you're in vertex form, there is no need. Okay, we can also do axis of symmetry. That's just x equals 4. Always an x equals, and it passes the x coordinate of our vertex. We can also do orientation. Okay, your a value is a negative. That means it's opening down. You can also see that since we graphed it. We also know our shape. It's a 1/5. That is a fraction between 0 and 1. That makes it wide. So these first 4, you could have done all of those without typing it into your calculator. But again, you have a calculator. You're welcome to do it. Okay, so now we're going to find the y-intercept. Here's the new thing. You're going to go second trace value is the first option, and our y-intercept is where x is 0. So go ahead, type that in, and it's going to jump straight to it. It's 0, 6.8. Okay, and you want to find that on your y-axis there and make sure you label it. Okay, zeros, there are 2 of them. Again, this is where we hit the x-axis. And this is our second trace 5, enter, enter, enter. Okay, here we go. Second trace 5. Move your cursor over. Enter, enter, enter. Okay, so there's the first one, negative 3.070. Label it. And put it on the line. And now we have to do it again because there's one more. Second trace 5. Move your cursor over. Make sure you move all the way over to the other side. Get as close to it as you can. And then enter, enter, enter. And 11.07. And there you go. All right, flip the page. So just for time's sake, since we're already getting close to 20 minutes, we are going to just end with number 4. But I will go ahead and list the answers for number 5 if you'd like to try it yourself. But I will not show how to do them just for time's sake. Okay, so for number 4, we are in standard form. All right, so for standard form, you are not going to be able to just look at it and find the vertex. We can still do orientation and shape without our calculator though. Since our a value here, 3, is a positive, that means we're going to orient up. And our shape, 3 is more than 1, so this will be narrow. However, you're welcome to just wait and look at the picture, because again, we're gonna have to graph it with our calculator. Okay, zoom 6. All right, so vertex, this is definitely a minimum. So let's find it. Second trace, minimum. Left bound, make sure you're to the left. Enter. Right bound, go to the right, enter. Guess, go to the middle, enter. And this is going to be a negative 0.83, negative 4.08. Oh, and I guess I should draw it, shouldn't I? Negative 0.83. Oh, this was not a good picture. It crosses the x-axis, so let's try again. Negative 0.83, negative 4.08. Okay, so now that we have the vertex, we know our axis of symmetry because it's always x equals, and then it's whatever the x coordinate of your vertex was. Okay, 2 more things. Y-intercept is right here. That one is second trace value, and x equals 0. So 0, negative 2. Put that here. And finally, zeros, we have 2 of them. Okay, and so that is our second trace 5. Move your cursor over, enter, enter, enter. Now notice I didn't get right on top of it, but I was close enough. So 0.33 comma 0. Okay, again, notice I'm putting it on the graph and on the line. Second trace 5. Move your cursor over. Enter, enter, enter. And -2, 0. And I don't care what order you have them in, just make sure you have both. Okay, here are answers for number 5 if you would like to try them. Your vertex should be at 3, 2. Your axis of symmetry is x equals 3. This is going to be an up because it's +1. It's going to be a normal. Your y-intercept is going to be 0, 11. And actually, when you graph this, it looks like this, so you do not have any zeros. Okay, so your 0, 11 is right here, and your 3, 2 is here. All right, and so just about 21 minutes here. I hope this was helpful. Have a great day. Bye.